Now, Dasan, apparently you rocked up today in the same car you drove off in last year. Do you know something we don't know about what's going to happen tonight?
Well, Vuyo, unfortunately, that was the plan and that was what I had tried to do, but the judges ever so nicely asked me to return that Audi TT RS, but they were kind enough to let me play around with this little toy before the awards got underway this evening. So this is now the second part of this entire process. The first part of the process was what you mentioned while I was at Gerotech, and that was where some of the testing took place. But after all of that and after the results have been collated, it brings us here to this gala dinner, which I think Hannes Oosthuizen will be able to tell me. He's with cars.co.za. This is just a little bit like the Grammys of the motor industry, not so?
Well, that's a perfect description. We pitched it as the Oscars of the local car industry, correct.
And I see that you've got some familiar faces, you've got people dressed up all nicely here. Tells me that it's going to be quite an evening. What can we expect?
A lot of winners. Obviously not everybody is a winner. Some entertainment, lots of color. It's a very colorful night, very loud. A few surprises, I think, as well. You know, John Flismus is behind this thing, so it's not your typical motoring award show.
Exactly, and just to remind our viewers, you know, the last time we took them to Gerotech with us, they saw us in some of these performance cars and going around tracks and things like that. But it's not all about performance cars, because there are about 13 categories, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. So we have everything from budget car to your family cars, even in different sizes. All your SUVs, you know, the market is dominated by SUVs these days, so there are SUVs in different sizes, different price categories. And your bakkies as well, of course, and a few performance C-cars as well.
Now, we did mention earlier that these awards were different because it took into account consumers' views as well. Just take us very briefly through that process and how it's done. I mean, that must have been a mammoth task with all of those judges taking these cars around the track and then also having to collate that information that you receive from your consumers. How did you get it all done?
Yeah, there are many moving parts in this one. So it starts with selecting the 5 semi-finalists, and that's done in-house by the Cars & staff because we know we drive the cars. Then we whittle that down to 3, and those 3 per category, so that's 39 cars, have to come to one place for 2 days to be tested by 19 judges. So it's a logistical challenge. At the same time, we are serving South African car owners 50 question surveys, very in-depth on their own cars. So they don't vote, they actually score their own vehicles because that's a car they know the best.
And ultimately, Hannes, we are going to find out which is the brand of the year, right?
Correct, that's the big one. Even the trophy is a bit bigger. So that's entirely driven by data, and that data comes from South Africa's car owners. So it really depends on how a brand looks after its customers. That's really what gives the brand the edge over its competition.
Hannes, as I wrap up with Vuyo here, I'm just going to take us a little closer to the actual event. I'll ask Nkaniso just to come with me. Vuyo, I promise you, even though I have been driving these cars and I have been spending time with Hannes, I too don't know which cars are actually going to win in those various categories. But I promise you, I will tell you a bit later on tonight. Some of those winners will start being announced from about 7:45 or so, but by about 7:15 to about 7:30, we will know which is the brand of the year.
Dasan Thafia, I want his job. I mean, the guy spent the whole of December driving around the country, tasting wine, beer, eating specially made food. And today, or this week, he's been driving fast cars, and he calls that a job. Well, I'd like to have his job.